Once upon a time, in a distant land, there was a young man named Arthur. He was brave and kind-hearted, always eager for adventure. One day, Arthur's father told him a tragic story about his long-lost brother who was taken away by bandits when he was a child. His only identifying mark was a small mole on his wrist that resembled the moon. Arthur, determined never to step foot in the bandits' territory, promised his father he would stay away. With that assurance, he set off on a journey to a faraway kingdom, riding his 2 trusted horses. After traveling for several days, he arrived at the banks of a raging river. The ferryman refused to carry his horses across, suggesting that Arthur should head west to find a stronger boat. As Arthur turned west, a powerful storm swept through the land. Looking for shelter, he spotted smoke rising from a distant mountain and decided to investigate. As he climbed, a rock beneath his feet slipped, and Arthur tumbled down into a strange village below. His horses followed closely behind. As he dusted himself off, he noticed an old man approaching. The old man stared at Arthur intently before asking, "Son, are you hurt?" Arthur was surprised by the kindness in the village, despite the eerie stories he had heard about this place. Just as he was about to thank the old man, the elder suddenly burst into tears. A small frog had been crushed under Arthur's fall. The old man mourned loudly, calling the frog his beloved child. Villagers gathered around, speaking in a language Arthur could not understand. Someone explained, this old man never had children, so he raised this frog like a son. Now that it's gone, he is devastated. Arthur, puzzled but sympathetic, asked how he could help ease the old man's sorrow. Without hesitation, the elder replied, "Give me one of your horses in exchange." Shocked, Arthur refused, but the villagers insisted. "Can a horse be more valuable than someone's child?" the old man argued. Left with no choice, Arthur reluctantly handed over one of his horses and sorrowfully left the village. He walked for hours, searching for a pass through the mountains, until he stumbled upon another village. Exhausted and starving, he knocked on a door. A man with only one eye answered. "I have no food to offer," he said, "but you may drink as much water as you like." After drinking his fill, Arthur thanked him and prepared to leave, but the one-eyed man suddenly grabbed his arm. "Wait," he shouted. "Where are you from? What is your father's name?" Arthur hesitated before answering. The man's expression changed instantly. "At last, I've found you," he cried. Confused, Arthur listened as the man explained. 20 years ago, I traveled to your land for trade, but I was robbed of all my money. Desperate, I borrowed 200 gold coins from your father. Since I had no collateral, he took one of my eyes as a guarantee, promising to return it after a year. But he never came back. Now, you must return my eye." Arthur was speechless. "I don't know anything about this," he replied. "What do you want me to do now?" The man smirked. "Leave your horse here, and I'll consider the debt repaid." Left with no choice, Arthur gave up his second horse and walked away, alone and disheartened. Weary and aching from his fall, he sat under a tree, feeling hopeless. A young traveler passed by and noticed his sorrow. "What happened, my friend?" he asked. Arthur hesitated at first, but then shared his misfortunes. The traveler thought for a moment and said, "Come with me to the king. He is just and wise. He will help you." Arthur agreed, having nothing left to lose. When they reached the king's court, the old man and the one-eyed man were summoned. First, the old man presented his case about the frog. Arthur then took out a frog from a scarf and said, "Your Majesty, I have adopted this frog as my son. I will place him at the mountain's edge, and the old man can push him down as I did. That way, justice will be served." The king chuckled at the clever response and ruled in Arthur's favor. Defeated, the old man silently returned the horse. Next, the one-eyed man spoke. Arthur responded, "Your Majesty, my father loved collecting eyes. We have hundreds stored at home. I am willing to return this man's eye, but first, I must find the exact match. He should give me his other eye so I can compare them properly." The one-eyed man panicked and immediately withdrew his claim, returning the second horse without protest. Relieved and grateful, Arthur turned to his new friend and said, "You have helped me beyond measure. How can I ever repay you?" As they walked toward the kingdom's border, Arthur's eyes fell on the young man's wrist. There, on his skin, was a small moon-shaped birthmark, just like his brother's. Overcome with emotion, Arthur embraced him, realizing that fate had reunited them at last. His brother explained that after years of living among the bandits, he had learned their ways and was only waiting for an opportunity to escape. Now, he could finally return home. Together, they journeyed back to their father, selling their horses for a good price along the way. Their father wept tears of joy, welcoming his sons back into his arms. And so, Arthur and his brother lived happily, never forgetting the lessons they had learned on their adventure.